Happy New Year, 2025, and we're back. The Design Principles Pod.
We're
It's been
back.
a bit of a hiatus, but we're ripped and raring to go.
Watch out.
How are you
Back,
guys?
back by popular demand.
Well, do you know what's funny is I reckon in the last week, I've just caught up with various people and they've been like, when are you guys doing the podcast again? Which is cool. So actually had coffee with Andy Spain yesterday and he was like, have you guys done any recent episodes? And I was like, no, we haven't, but here we go.
Oh, should we get Andy on?
I reckon he's keen to jump on. Yep. He wants to have a yarn. He'd be a good one to get round for the pint.
Yeah. I don't have any beers today. I was thinking
Those were the rules, mate.
I know. I'm also going booze free at the moment, so I've just got water.
Yeah. So the banter's already gone downhill.
Yeah, I know. Well, we've got no sponsorship. That's what we're, So if there's any liquor sponsors out there that want to hit us up, that'd be great. Help the chat flow.
Yeah, or just any in general.
I reckon because that's why we started this, right? Well, that's the initial idea behind us starting the pod was to kind of take those pub
Get some
chats
free booze. Oh, yeah.
Get free booze. No, it was to take those pub chats and kind of just bring them out to the masses. But we sort of we got a bit serious in a good way. But you want to bring that jovial, inebriated, slightly lubricated chatter back.
Yeah, we certainly dropped off end of last year, didn't we? So
hey, we're all busy.
But we never got to hear about your experience at the Dezeen Awards.
Yeah, well, do you want me to jump straight into it?
Oh, yeah, if you don't mind. I want to hear about it.
So, firstly, actually, I just want to have a quick shout out to Wellington, just in reference to the Dezeen Awards, because I'd actually even realised, obviously I knew going over there that Thomas Seabird had been longlisted for his MK house out in Eastbourne, which was really cool because we sort of had the only two projects from New Zealand that were longlisted was Seabird Ross and the MK house and us at Arret with our Krakatoa. Both projects were in Eastbourne and both projects were by architects from our graduating class from Vic, which was
nice.
Dope. So it was kind of
cool.
Kind of like
the Rippers.
Yeah, I know, like a new dawn, which was pretty sweet. But then what I didn't realise is when I was at the awards, the design firm that won Designer of the Year, Studio Sabine Marcellus, they're like hero image for their design work. And I don't think she's based out of Rotterdam. I might be wrong there, but
yeah, she went to Vic.
Yeah, and her installation is currently outside Te Papa, and that was like the hero image at the awards when they went up on stage to collect their gong. And I was just like, shit, yeah, what a expose for Wellington design. That three, highly ranked projects, Thomas longlisted, ourselves shortlisted, and then Sabine Marcellus winning Designer of the Year. We're all had a connection to Wellington. So I thought that was really sick. And I tried to reach out to the Dawn Post to see if they wanted to try and uplift Wellington a little bit, something nice to talk about in terms of Wellington, but radio silence. So if another pitch, if anyone out there's in PR and wants to help me out, that'd be great. Or if anybody wants to just make Wellington feel a little bit warmer and a little bit fuzzier, there's a nice little story for you.
Is it not warm down there?
No, I just mean the general vibe.
Yeah. Gerard, you had a short list for the Dezeen Awards yourself, didn't you?
Yeah. Was that the year before?
I think it must have been the year before.
But it was me and Ollie Booth with the New Zealand ones.
Both both from Vic.
Was that for your piccolo?
Yeah.
Sick.
Long list.
Long list, yeah. So there we go.
Somebody nominated it for the Arc Daily World Building of the Year. which
Yeah,
was
that was
hilarious for like a max $3,000 project.
look at that from like a Vic perspective, though. Eh? That's pretty cool. Like that's a great alumni success.
Yeah, you raise a really good point there. That like there actually are some pretty good things coming out of Wellington, but I think Wellington's done an absolutely horrendous job of like noticing its own talent in the city.
Yeah. I think they're too busy focused on the glum, you know.
Yeah.
So I still think there's definitely scope for a story there if anybody wants to sort of get involved. But anyway, the awards. So I tell you what, do you know what's really funny is I got back from the awards and I had lunch with Nick Officer from First Light, and they're St Hilda's Church renovation project won at the NZIA National Awards, which is really awesome.
Yeah. Yep.
I was chatting to Nick about how the awards ceremony was, and he said it was the worst awards show he'd ever been to. It was basically like sitting in a school assembly, but for architecture. So NZIA, if you're listening, listen to what I'm about to tell you.
You're just throwing Nick under the bus here.
No, I'm not throwing Nick. Well, I think Nick could stand by it. I mean, guys, like you're supposed to be out here, like, you know, uplifting architecture and promoting it, and you just like throw the lamest party ever.
And Dezeen's gone. Who is there? Who's doing parties these days for architects and designers?
No one.
Do you guys know that architecture? Have we talked about this before? I probably have. I bring it up all the time. Ice Cube celebrating the Eames.
Yeah.
But just how he delivers architecture, like architects could learn a lot on how talking about architecture a lot less boring. Like
we fall into the trap
stuff, and you could zest it up a little bit. Just get somebody on stage who's not monotone.
Hopefully we fall into the category of zesty architecture chat and not boring architecture.
We're definitely a bunch of zesty boys, but work on the tone.
So anyway, back to the awards ceremony, and where I was going with the NZIA thing is, you know, Nick was telling me about their very school assembly type night, while I was telling him about essentially what felt like going to the Oscars of architecture and design. You know, like you arrive, it was at Hackney Church, which has recently been renovated. And there was like this big immersive light show by a local designer, and the whole thing was catered by this London chef, and everything was sourced within like a max 7K radius or something from his kitchen. And I must admit, I got about two canapes. That was about it. But the drinks tray managed to find us pretty regularly, which was not bad. But you know, you're basically, the whole thing's sponsored by Bentley. You like walking the red carpet. There's all these like beautiful like concept Bentley cars, you know, beside you and everything. You walk into this room and it's just packed to the rafters. I think there's like 600 people there, maybe. Full international. You know, there's everybody from, you know, us, you know, myself from New Zealand, met a guy from Burkina Faso. There was, you know, people from throughout Europe and America and South America. And, you know, we're chatting to architects from Spain. I chatted to one from Portugal, one from the Czech Republic. You know, it was pretty amazing. And obviously, like, on a design scale, everybody is just, like, dressed to the nines. So you had to come correct.
That's cool.
And fortunately, I sort of thought ahead about that. So tried to dress up a little bit, but even then, you know, still felt kind of slightly underdressed.
Nice. Did you wear like a nice house hat?
I did not rock the Jaden
No, you
Smith.
didn't.
I didn't rock the Jaden Smith Black Castle on the
you didn't.
noggin. Apparently that's worth like, I don't know, like $4,500 or something.
Well, before or after?
Before. Yeah, no, before. Ridiculous.
Just thinking about that for a minute though, I definitely vote that we get Bentley on as sponsors, because the Dezeen sounds epic
for the podcast.
Exactly.
There you
go. It's just a no-brainer.
Yeah. But yeah, like the thing is, like no expense spared, and like they had DJs playing, and then they had live entertainment. This like really beautiful spoken word poem. I think his name was Lionheart, a British poet, did a piece which was really cool. And then the way that they actually ran the awards, and I think there's something to be said for this, particularly from like a New Zealand awards ceremony point of view, if anybody else has been to one, rather than there being like this very long preamble and introducing the shortlisted projects, and then everybody gets up on stage and everyone has a chat, has a welcome speech and all that, blah, 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 blah. They literally just went, bam, these are the shortlists. Winner, choom, there you go. Here's your prize. Go over there, take a photo. See you later. Next one, boom. And at the time, it was sort of like, whoa, this is like intense. And you kind of like never had a moment to like revel in your like little project up there being shortlisted. But in hindsight, exactly, bro. Like in hindsight, the actual like awards part of it probably only went for like an hour and a half, but we were at the venue for like 5 hours, and the rest of it was just a big party, and it was sick. And I think it's the way that it should be. You obviously have this little moment in the sun, but you're there celebrating with your peers and just like enjoying like architecture and design rather than listening to, no offense, but everyone's life stories.
Yeah. Snappy speed.
That whole set seat thing is really does it for me, eh?
Yeah,
that's one way to put me straight to sleep as well.
You've got to be standing because that forces you to go quick. Otherwise, you're going to get people fainting, collapsing from tired legs or something.
I got a haircut just before, and I barely even made it through my haircut.
Are you part of that TikTok generation?
It's just like when you finally sit still for a minute, your body's like, it must be bedtime.
Shampooing, massaging your head.
Yeah, exactly.
But but it was just such a like amazing event, so well run. Like it was what you'd expect from an awards ceremony of an international scale. But it kind of exceeded my expectations a little bit, and I'm fortunate enough to get invited to the after party, which was pretty fun. So,
did you get invited by any famous architects or anything?
Nah, no famous architects. Didn't manage to talk to any famous people. I was trying to corner the people from. Oh man, now I've gone mind blank on their names. This is embarrassing.
You didn't see Bjarkingles at the after party then?
Bjarg wasn't there, no.
Oh, no.
Jumping on a trampoline with a fan.
But no, anyway, sorry, that was embarrassing. Kind of forgot who I was trying to why can't I think of their name? They're like one of my favourite architecture firms. Snow-Eater. Thank you. Oh my God, that took a long time. Snow-Eater had been shortlisted, and I was hoping to try and like have a yarn to them, but no dice. Unfortunately. Well, do you know what was actually really cool? Most of the socialising, one criticism of the Hackney Church is not enough toilets. So most of the actual like networking or like socialising was done in the line of the toilets.
Oh, nice. You leave your business card on the toilet seat again?
Yeah, was it that surreptitious leave it on the counter at an open home thingy?
Yeah, exactly. Leave it on the toilet at an open home.
It's like a throwback to episode 3 or something.
Yeah.
But like I chatted to the editor, the like main editor of Dezeen, in the toilet line. He's like, "Oh, you're the guy from New Zealand. You got that little like tower thingy in the bush." So I really liked your project. It's really cool to be able to feature that. Blah 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 blah, which was awesome. To have someone like that kind of like know who you are and what you do and stuff like that. So I think it's just I can't encourage people more to look outside of the New Zealand awards scope. Like obviously NZIA Awards 2025 are coming up. I imagine people will be kind of focusing on those, but shit man, look internationally, because that kind of like peer recognition and exposure is so much better than what you get from just the local stuff.
Yeah. Well, I think there's something just in that format as well, like treating it more like a party than like a high school auditorium hangout. because well, you're kind of there, the peer-to-peer conversation, like that conversation with the editor guy, like that's recognition in itself, and like you actually get to meet people, and the community actually gets a chance to develop a bit more if you get to yarn with more people.
Exactly, yeah. It's really nice. The support that everyone had for everyone else as well was really impressive.
You get to express that more in a scenario where you actually get to hang out and have a few beers with people.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you get too tired and you want to go home immediately.
Yeah, we should definitely throw more parties.
Yeah, just make it more of a party. The Dezeen party's gone, so we need something to fill the gap.
Yeah,
the Design Principles Party.
The DPP party.
The DPP party.
Yeah.
Or DP party.
A couple of DJs, you were laughing.
Yeah. Yeah, they had Hot Chip for NEOG sort of electro fans was the headline act, which was pretty funny. Hamish McLaughlin will rate that. It was good. It was a good time. Yeah. So anyway, that's my little Dezeen recap, I think. But yeah, like I said, I just can't kind of encourage people to enter international stuff more, and it's cool the doors that it opens up. Like obviously make those short lists, and then since then we've been shoulder tapped a bunch for articles and publications and stuff of that project. So it's kind of nice that it gives you a broader reach, particularly an international reach as well, which I think us in little old New Zealand should strive a little bit more for. And what I kind of liked about it is, we're classic Kiwis. The whole tall poppy syndrome. We don't want to get cut down, so we don't try and stick our heads up too high. But when you're in that sort of environment, you're forced to sort of just be a little bit more kind of confident and overt. And it was quite nice just sort of leaning into it, and being like, yeah, I'm here because I did a thing. This is sick. Whereas usually you're like, oh, thank you so much for recognizing me. I didn't think my work was very good, but yay, thank you. Whereas we should be a little bit more like, shit, yeah, we're the man. This is awesome.
The whole profession needs to be way more like giving each other props.
Yeah.
There's some people doing some epic work, so like people need to be okay with giving some props to people.
Yeah, I feel like there's like there's an air of negativity around things, and I even find like reading Architecture NZ sometimes, like the underlying tone of a lot of articles in that is like not necessarily negative, but like it's not uplifting. Like a lot of the times it's kind of like a bit critical. So yeah, I don't know, like obviously there's a place for criticism, but I think there's also a place for just like buoyancy.
Yeah, some positivity.
Yeah.
Bring the love.
Is that what 2025 is about? We've survived till 25. Now it's time to thrive. It's a little buzz for you.
Nice.
Get it done. You're going to hit up you've got a few more competitions lined up that you want to think of entering?
Well, I was about to get on to that. Like, obviously, like there's the upcoming awards sort of like program. Yeah, I think we'll enter the NZIA awards again this year, and again look internationally at stuff. I think it's once you sort of rip that Band-Aid off, you realise it's not as daunting as it seems, and why not? What's the worst thing that can happen? People just say, "Oh no, we don't really like it," and you go, "Okay, cool, well, that's fine, moving on." But I think beyond the awards sort of chat and kind of more focusing on the international thing, Gerard, you sort of just mentioned that word competition. I think that's something that we neglect in New Zealand, and I think that's sort of where I want to try and lead the conversation now is like, where's competition?
Yeah, there are no competitions. Like the only competitions I generally seem to find are like ideas competitions, but in Europe it seems to be like a pretty big model just for procurement. Yeah,
totally. You think like every big civic, public, commercial building is all generally like procured through a competition format, And what I really like about that is variation. You're not having the same 3 or 4 architecture firms that get every one of the big civic or public projects, and they all end up looking pretty generic and similar. What you end up with is a super diverse, landscape. And speaking of the Dezeen Awards, like they were held in London, and London's a perfect example of like how diverse that architectural landscape is. And it's not like they went out and went, okay, here you go. You can have here you go, Renzo Piano. You can have the Shard, or this is for you. Like it was run through competition, and so you get something that's like insane that otherwise probably wouldn't have been developed. Come out of that process.
Yeah, man, they must spend a lot of time, just working on competitions and a lot of unbillable hours and that sort of thing until you kind of finally win one. So like, although it sounds all glamorous, it must also be a huge burden for them.
Yeah, risk reward. Like if you're going to play the game.
Yeah, but what if you're just like not? Is there such a thing as a competition architect where you just know how to play the game better than everyone?
Zaha was that. Yaga was that. A lot of these like huge architecture firms now started out as paper architects. Like they survived in the competition realm until they won that one. God knows how they survived through those periods. I'd love to see that business model, but they did.
I don't think there was a business model.
And then you get that one commission, and then you're away laughing. But at least like that whole time you're being like creative. You're being forced to think creatively, because that's what competitions do. Is they really push the barrier of the norm, which I like.
Yeah. I wonder why they don't do it in New Zealand then. There's definitely like a preferred contractor mentality here, isn't there?
Probably a time and cost thing, maybe. I don't know.
I've done a couple with Chris Moller before, years and years, while I was at uni actually. And they were actually really cool. They were down in Christchurch. Well, one was down in Christchurch, one was overseas. A lot of fun. But yeah, you do. It's like get through to concept and to develop design. There's a lot of work and hours put into it.
Yeah, a project I'm working on was, I don't know, maybe it was a little cheeky, bizarre, in that to tender, you did a concept design. So I think a bunch of architecture firms around New Zealand did a concept design for this project up in Coromandel, but I managed to pull them off. So I won that one.
Nice.
Yeah. Is it about who's got the best render?
Do you know what's funny about that, Ben, is we did that. What's funny about that, Gerard, is we did that for a project down in Wanaka, and Johnny talked about it in his professional conversation for his registration. Yeah. And he got slapped on the wrist big time.
Oh.
The NZRAB examiners being like, you shouldn't work for free, blah, 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 blah. And I was sort of like, well,
what are we doing the rest of the time?
And like it's the whole thing about being properly remunerated and all that sort of jazz. And we're like, well, but then how else are you getting work?
Jobs instead.
Yeah, I mean, I think that maybe the reason that we don't have the culture in here is because it's being sort of like tamped down by the powers that be.
Yeah, I think there is that big undertone of fear of risk or undervaluing, but man, the potential in that form of procurement is huge, I think.
Maybe there's a fear of
his career.
Maybe there's a big fear. I know I see this actually a lot in New Zealand. There's a big fear of stolen IP, particularly with some of the like bigger architecture firms. They're terrified of people taking their ideas. But then
buildings look the same, so it's like...
Yeah. And then you go on like QLDC eDocs where they have every single building consent available and like take your pick out of details,
I think realistically though, it's the same problem that it always is, and it probably comes down to, liability. Everything's about liability, or seems to be in this country. Like if you're just like starting out a small firm and you win a competition for a big building, there's just huge risk involved. And like why would for example the government, they're really big on like making sure that whoever's involved is up to the task. So I don't know. I think it comes down to that really at the end of the day.
I think there's really easy ways around that. I think you just get paired with a big office or something, and you're like design lead or something because you want to come.
Yeah, but what happens if it kind of just falls through? Like, who picks up the slack then? If one person can't do it, does it filter down to the second best project? Like, how does that work? Does it just keep going down the list?
I think this is the problem, Ben. You're thinking too much about it. They should just run them. Just let people be creative, come up with good ideas, and then sort out all the boring bullshit later.
If you did, let's say, hypothetically, you did a month of free labour and put a Minas concept in and you managed to win, I think you would be pretty motivated to make that work and then follow through on the project.
And equally, I think as well, Gerard, like if you didn't, like we put together a big tender package last year with a build partner for some government work. And again, we probably spent like 6 weeks full time, 3 people working on this thing. And, we developed 6 housing prototypes. That was part of this package. We didn't win the tender. I actually don't know who. They never announced who did win it. But that work's not lost. You still hold that IP, and we've then been able to like take those designs and implement them elsewhere. So I don't think you need to look at it, the fear of it being like lost work or lost time or whatever. I think you'd look at it as opportunity because it's giving you a framework to think like creatively with a brief that you might not have otherwise had access to, and then you can just use those ideas somewhere else.
Yeah, that goes back to some of our design conversations. And I'm a big believer that design is like a muscle. So the more you use it, the better you're going to get. So, yeah, you definitely don't lose in that regard. Just financial.
I mean, you do get the opportunity to, like, submit proposals for a lot of jobs here. So what's the difference?
A lot of them don't involve design, though.
Just do a design then. Hey, you want to stand out, and you're willing to work for free. Just do a design.
You've already done the job. Yeah, just give me some building consent docs or something.
Hey, you're making fun of me now because of that suggestion. But that's what a competition is.
It's a fair point, Ben. But I think also like we're talking in the realms of like government work, right? Like big public or civic work. But I think there should be the capacity for competition elsewhere as well. Like from a residential point of view, like if you're a high, money budget client, I'd be looking at getting, architects to put in like design competition ideas. You just don't really, and that may exist. Maybe we're just too small to be exposed to that. But it'd be cool if it was like, if there was the capacity for that a little bit more throughout architecture rather than just looking at that like government or civic or commercial work,
Yeah, a lot of people won't like that idea. But at the same time, we always ask builders to do, 3 weeks of quoting to win a job. So what's the worst of you can put a couple of scribbles to a page along with a fee proposal for a client.
Exactly, and it doesn't have to be. I mean, like we're classic like over workers, right? We're always going to deliver more than what's asked. They'll be like, can you like draw a napkin sketch, and we'll provide like fucking details and
one-to-one
full plans and like a scale model and like all of these renders and fly throughs and shit. But that's on us.
But like, if there was a thing though, would you actually do it? Like, I'm not sure I would. I probably wouldn't. I probably would if it was in another country, but I probably wouldn't here. I'd be like,
why not here?
Just because I want to get paid for my work.
But why would you not? Why would you do it internationally though?
Because it's removes that entrance into the market, right? It's like removing that barrier to entry, so you actually have like market penetration.
Gives you an in. Yeah.
Gives you an in, yeah. Whereas here, it's like you're already doing it. You just, I don't know. That's just my thought anyway. I probably wouldn't. Maybe if it was like really cool and interesting, you'd do it for fun.
You could write it into your proposal that you're submitting that, if you take this, you owe us X amount for the concept or whatever. So then they'd have to like it that much to pay for the concept.
But equally, like from a client perspective, like if there's prospective clients out there that are listening to this and thinking, oh, this actually sounds kind of like an interesting idea. What's the harm in fronting, a few $1,000s to run a competition, sort of paying everybody for their time and just like gaining a breadth of ideas, because when you engage an architect directly, one-on-one, like we're hiring Gerard Dombrowski Workshop or whatever, you're going to get a concept that you develop, right? And you might get one or two, but you're not going to get like 4 or 5. So you're not going to see a big range, you know what I mean? But if you say, okay, sweet, we're going to front like $5,000 or something to run this competition. Everybody that enters, you'll get remunerated. You have 5 people to enter. You remunerated $1,000 for your little concept or whatever.
Or just the winner gets $5,000.
Yeah, but no, the winner gets the job
and $5,000 for their concept.
But then, like everybody else, what you've got out of that is you've got this like huge spectrum of different design ideas that you can then cherry pick. Maybe not cherry pick elements, but you can like pick the one that you like the most, and you might find a solution that you never even thought about. So I reckon that's just like an interesting mechanism for gaining more sort of design breadth at the concept stage as well.
Yeah, and it probably allows more architects to compete for work because, I don't know, it kind of democratizes it a bit, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think that's one thing that I
you just have
struggle
to be
with.
comfortable with the agreement on how whether you feel like you're getting remunerated or if it's too much for you.
Yeah, and you've done this really well, Gerard, but it's something that I struggle with is like as a small architecture firm or as a small player, it's very hard to get a look in for like bigger contracts or larger jobs or even government work. You've done that really well. I'd be interested to know how you've gone about that. But
just be friends with him.
But generally speaking, those of us that are like sole practitioners or have a smaller firm, it's a very, very like hard barrier to entry to get into doing that like larger scale work.
Incredibly hard because especially in New Zealand, people want to see like a similar building before they'll trust you with.
Yeah.
Trust. I think that's, I don't know, the trust part is probably the key there. But like there's other ways you can gain trust, like networking, for example, like actually spending the time to get out there and meet the people.
Getting out there and shooting some holes on the golf course.
So, yeah, I'm not convinced. I think, definitely for international and fun stuff. But I don't know if I'd do it for like a residential house. I just don't think there's enough in it.
Yeah. It was a small, relatively uninteresting project, I think.
It would have to be cool. And like if it was like some sort of exhibition project, then for sure. But like surely they already exist.
Yeah. Oh, well, to a degree. I mean, like think back to, the Te Papa days when they ran a big international competition for that. And ultimately it went to a New Zealand firm. And, at the time they did a good job. But like what could...
Nice. Slip that in there.
Just trying to not incriminate myself.
Yeah. Why don't you tell us what you really think?
I'll reserve that for offline. No, but I guess what I'm getting at is if we continue to do that, and we sort of have a little bit like with the Cardboard Cathedral and a little bit with Scott Base, RIP, but being able to bring international talent into New Zealand, really helps everybody in the country as well because it opens up our exposure. This is going back to the conversation at the top of the pod about, the Dezeen Awards and having that, being exposed to that international realm of design and architecture. Like I feel like we're quite closeted and insular here because we're so far away from the rest of the world and we don't have that international talent coming here to ply their wares,
Yeah, the only talent is our year at uni, apparently, eh?
Yeah.
The golden year. There was that recent housing competition in Australia, I think.
That spacecraft.
Spacecraft did really well.
Yeah, that was cool. I really liked their project too.
I I think that was the one me and Chloe actually competed in picking. It was quite a long time ago now, I think. Yeah, that was a little too out there, I think.
So, Gerard, you've mentioned a few competitions now already, but where are you? Because that's another thing that I've really struggled with outside of like kind of bigger pie in the sky idea competitions hosted by the likes of like Buildner, who seem to be like the international standard for design competitions. But like, where are you finding these comps, and like, where are you finding information about them?
Yeah, I did one a long time ago. One of those, I think it was something like Buildner, which is like a chapel in Rwanda. If you scroll back far enough on my Instagram, there's like some little models like that. But I only got halfway through it, and then I realised it was like an ideas competition. I was like, oh man, but I was in too deep at that point. But So from there on, I kind of only really wanted to go into projects that had, I don't know, a building outcome. And the Australian one I found through a good mate, Chingy, who is a year above us in architecture school. He lives in Melbourne. He's architect, but project manager now as well. So he found that one. So it was me, Chloe, and him that worked on that one. And then the Coromandel one was actually just through Driving Creek. So it was, I guess, through that little piccolo. And then one of the guys who was running Driving Creek at the time just invited me to it. So that was like an invite tender.
Yeah.
With a lot of more North Island, Hamilton, Auckland architects. But I think those are the only ones. So I've one real one and one lost one. Lost one, won one. But yeah, always want to sort of, I don't know, go into that sort of work, because that's where I thrive, I think. I thrive on a design competition.
Yeah, I think just having that freedom, right? Like, and the pressure a little bit as well. Do you reckon that helps?
Yeah. And then like you're forced to come up with something really interesting. I don't know. You're sometimes we're maybe a little conservative with a client that is your client, and whereas if they're not your client, you're willing to take a few more risks, but then in the hope that it stands out amongst the few and gets a bit of attention. But yeah, sometimes that works, I think. Create something a little bit.
I totally know what you mean. And we did a couple of years ago, we did one of those Buildner competitions. It was for like toilet solutions, portable toilet solutions for Everest Base Camp. And we got an honourable mention for that, which was really cool. Concept one, just the competition. But I guess what I'm getting at there is like, you're right about that. It makes you do something that you'd never even think about. Because like if somebody came to you and said, I want you to design a toilet for Everest Base Camp, you'd probably come up with a very practical, very like sensible, very like realistic, because it has to be real at that point anyway, solution. But that constrains you. Whereas like this, because it was just an ideas thing, you're just throwing shit left, right, and center. And some of the like concepts and solutions were like absolutely incredible. But there was also reality to them as well. I could have seen any one of those sort of like honourable mentions up to the winners being built. And I think like you're right about it, when it being like a one-on-one client thing, you feel a little bit like conservative. Like breaking that shackle off is a great way to like produce better and more varied design as well.
Yeah, I think you get some incredibly interesting things out of projects. Yeah, I think I don't know, if you did 25 years, say, of all public buildings as competitions, and you create a pretty like interesting city at the end of that.
Oh man, imagine how cool New Zealand would look, rather than everything just being like a carbon copy of the next one.
Yeah, it would be pretty cool.
You know, like you think about some of those. Well, actually,
like Christchurch Town Hall. Oh, that was competition. Epic building. One of my favourites.
Yeah, it must push the innovation and creativity side a lot, I would imagine. Because, there's just a lot more minds working on one thing at once. So I guess that's a huge benefit of one, for sure.
And I guess it also opens up that like phenomenon of like parallel thinking as well, right? You get lots of different minds working on one solution, you're going to come up with a lot of like different
high quality
ideas,
designs,
high quality different ideas, but you're also likely to get like a lot of the same solutions, which in a way validates, if it's really good, validates that design as well.
And validates the designers. So it's probably a really good way to like increase your brand awareness or your personal, for example, like you, Gerard, get your name out there a little bit more. I guess like that's a really good way to do it, especially if you're producing really good designs,
Yeah.
People will be looking.
There's Brick Bay. Do you remember Declan year below us?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
That's like probably the best one that they've done. And then if I'm a bit critical, they've potentially turned into all the same project.
Yeah, I actually went there like a couple of weeks ago. It's still pretty cool though.
Is the Brick Bay Folly, that's a competition as well though, right? Like
yes.
Yeah.
Sort of aimed at like early grads.
Yeah. So there you go. There's another one. I mean, I'm just trying to like collect.
Yeah, and I guess going back to that whole exposure thing, it's probably a good way to like find, if you're like someone who's wanting or looking for designers, architects, etc. It's a good way to like find someone with like a certain aesthetic that you're after, or at least like gauge a whole bunch of people's work at one time. So there's definitely like some pros for sure. When
Maybe we should run a design competition.
Yeah, what would we
I don't know. Well,
build?
Did you guys, when we were at university, did you guys do the 24-hour design comp that me and Hamish McLaughlin ran?
Yeah, we won it.
Oh, did you guys win it? Nice.
Yeah, Ambrose as well.
What was your idea?
We had the data center in the middle of the harbour.
Ah, yeah.
It was
Nice.
an awesome data tower.
That was sick. I
That
do
was
remember
fun.
that. So, I mean, I've got the framework sitting there. Well, me and Hamish will somewhere have the framework for running the design competition, but that was epic. And like, I think that's something that universities, I actually don't know if they even still do them. I doubt it, probably. But like, that culture of competition was so cool at university. You kind of have 24 hours, you get minds in one room, it's a buzz, there's free coffee.
Yeah, that's fun.
A party at the end of it, like it's such a great time. We should have that. We should have the same thing, we should have the same thing in the professional realm as well.
I definitely try and recreate that throughout like concept phase for sure. Like when you're like bringing around together and just like pump out a whole bunch of ideas and see what works best off the bat. Like I remember like how fun that was on that design competition. So highly recommend doing one of those for sure.
And like lack of sleep, too much caffeine, like the creative juices are just flowing.
Yeah, we just need to find someone. So if there's anyone out there who wants something built.
Well, at Driving Creek, we want to do more cabins, like more piccolos on the hill. So like, there's definitely an idea being floated. Friend Laurie keeps pushing on for like a residency again, but it's very low funding, so it's more of the same sort of stuff. And I don't think you'd find many people that want to do that sort of thing for free or for very low money. But I mean,
but the opportunities are out there, and I think
it depends on the incentive, right? Like if you're not going to if there's not like a financial or like a built product incentive, then there needs to be like a brand, like an awareness, I don't know, like a publication or something like that,
Like if that was properly advertised and thought about more, like you could find funding and like that. You'd find a magazine to pop that out.
Yeah, you'd have to find the magazine and then bring it all together.
The problem with magazines, though, is they're not open to the whole public. I reckon this is where the New Zealand news media falls down, is they don't support architecture at all. They don't even really recognise it as being a profession to support, whereas it is inherent in everybody's day-to-day life. And I think it's actually like the news media, particularly newsprint media and online in New Zealand, it's their responsibility to help sort of like promote all this stuff. You think about the NZIA Awards, they might get a small little bulletin, maybe even a one-pager or something on stuff. That's it. I've obviously got a bee in my bonnet about having no recognition for the Dezeen Awards. Although in saying that, is it Takina's at the World Building Festival or something? There is a New Zealand building that's being touted a little bit at the moment. It's at the World Building Festival or something like that. And I know the Living Par's getting a lot of press, obviously, because it is, it's past that Living Building Challenge. But
Auckland Art Museum won the World Building of the Year 10 years ago. I don't know, because we were, which is pretty World Building of the Year or some metric. I'm not sure what that platform was. Yeah. So we're doing some good stuff for sure.
It just needs to be talked about, eh?
Yeah. Media's the giant failure of architecture for New Zealand, I think. There's definitely a few people trying to push it, but yeah, the major publications don't want anything to do with it. Show us some love.
Well, how would you do it differently?
It's the year.
If you were running Home Magazine, what would you do different? Because most of the content is good. Is it just how they're selling it? Maybe some people just.
I was running NZIA.
What's that?
I just think this is more like a architect-specific thing. If I was running NZIA or something and we had the budget for it, I'd just do little adverts. How long's an ad? 30 seconds or something? We just do a micro grand designs on one of the more recent epic homes New Zealand architects put together.
Yeah, think about think about local project type things, or even what's their thing called? Kevin Hui, who we talked to. What's their show called? What's their
Archie Marathon?
Yeah, Archie Marathon, their videos as well. Yeah. It's those little snippets.
Yeah.
And then having them available.
Ooh.
I reckon it's a great idea.
Speaking of which, I see they've posted an extra couple up there. One in where were they? In is it not?
Yeah, they've been in Japan.
No, there's a German one now, which looks pretty interesting, and
nice.
I think is it Holland? No, I'm not sure. I'll have to have a look again. But they look awesome.
I saw on Instagram stories they were in some bathrooms in China yesterday or something.
Nice.
Some epic bathrooms.
Yes.
Real, it's like a Richard Serra sort of sculpture bathroom. Beautiful. China's got some good.
Start competitions just for some nice public loos.
Yeah.
Shrimp at Wellington waterfront.
Dude, I love that thing. Just it's fun, quirky, but weird.
Yeah, and you get those outcomes from competition. That's the
thing. Yeah. So it is the Netherlands and Germany in June and July, and they look pretty epic, I've got to say.
Yeah, I think video is accessible to everyone. And if you make it an interestingly enough video, sometimes I think the local project videos are a little bit slow, and if you're not into architecture, then you might zone out pretty quickly. But if it was slightly more snappy, if we got Ice Cube to narrate.
But just diving a little bit deeper in what you guys are talking about, should it not be up to the own designer? I mean, designers do all that stuff all the time, right? Do you make your own little snappy clips and put together publications?
I just do one of hydroforming going fat and thin. We just have Instagram stories, don't we? I think that's kind of what we have in our toolkit that's most accessible. I've got a couple of YouTube videos in edit, but I have never really finished. And they're all furniture based because those are sort of short time frame projects.
But our podcast from the end of last year.
Yeah. Listeners out there, there's a missing
still in edit.
18.
19.
Which is still in edit.
Oh, yeah.
Is it 19?
I thought it was.
I don't know. Anyway, it will come eventually.
That's a good one too.
It's a good one too. Yeah.
Maybe we'll drop it at the end of this year and see how much we've improved. Oh, good.
Nice.
All right
then. Hate it or love it. Ben, you've got...
No, I was going to change my hate it or love it to T Papa. Nah. Because, that sounds awesome. So, Sam, to Bubba, hate it or love it?
Shit, man. Way to throw me under the bus.
Hey, it's fine. It's a personal opinion. It's totally fine.
I love it as an experience, and I love what it encompasses and what's inside it. Aesthetically, the building from the outside isn't my cup of tea.
Yeah, I think it's definitely like aged from the outside for sure. It's kind of like stuck in its I don't even know, 90s or 2000s. I don't know what you'd call it. But the inside, we did like a lot of analysis on the inside of the building, and I actually really, quite enjoyed that. Enjoyed the
double columns.
Yeah, yeah. No, just like the journey around the place. So I'm on the fence, probably more towards not love it, unfortunately, but yeah. It's too literal
as a museum.
It's too literal for me.
I love it as a museum. I hate it as a building.
Yeah.
Yeah, for how public the site is, it really does not interact
with the
surroundings.
Yeah, the wall representing the fault line that is yada 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 running in the same direction, and this representing that, and it's just too literal for me, the design, personally. But I get it.
I'll put a poll up on the ground and see what people say.
Hey, and get them to go visit while they're at it. Probably need some love.
I do wonder how refined the big feather, how that would have looked developed into a full building.
The airfield Gary one, would have been interesting.
What
is that? All three of them? Airfield, Gary, Thompson. Really?
Yeah, might have been. Yeah.
What about you, Gerard? Where do you sit?
Well, yeah, it's a building, but it's definitely a lost opportunity. I think it's such a prominent site that it really should have interacted with all its surroundings a lot more.
That's a good point as well.
You've got the ocean right there, like there's massive, I don't know, real obvious potential there. Yeah.
Is this our first hate it or love it consensus?
Guess, yeah. There you go. Normally Sam's the odd one out. That's why we made him start this time. Lovely. Easy.
All right, guys. Bloody good. Well, we're back. Better than ever, 2025. If anybody's got any suggestions or ideas that they'd like us to discuss, if anybody wants to come on, have a pint, chat architecture and design with us, sing out, let us know. And equally, if anybody knows of any sponsorship opportunity to help us edit the podcast, because it's time-consuming and expensive, that'd be great. And equally, if anybody out there is an editor and wants to edit the podcast for us, then hit us up as well.
That would be ideal.
Yeah. Sweet.
Yeah, nice. Oh, well, I'll see you in 2 weeks.
Happy days. See you, boys.
Catch you later.